Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. I am your host, Bill Yankovi, and this is going to be an interesting week because we are, as of this recording, 9 days away from what will probably be the most unique Royal Rumble of all time. But this week, going to be reviewing Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view, give you my thoughts on that, plus talk about how I gave up on this week's Raw 15 minutes into the show. And that'll be pretty fun to discuss. But, I want to start this week by talking about what I think is the big story of the week in professional wrestling, and that is Wrestlemania. Last week on the show talked about there was a rumor at the time that Wrestlemania, this year's Wrestlemania, was going to be pushed back date-wise, because originally they had it scheduled as March 28th being the date for this year's WrestleMania. So that's how last week's show started. Now, how you found out about this goes really in two different ways. I'll give you the way that I didn't see it, and then the way I did see it. So the way that I didn't see it, and I believe they aired this on Raw Monday night, is they had a WrestleMania report with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon in disguises. I think Hunter's name was Henry E. Panky or Hanky E. Panky. I don't remember. And Stephanie's name was Anita Realman. Anita Realman, you know. And what they did was they sent it over to each person saying, this is when this WrestleMania is going to happen. So Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman did this year's WrestleMania. Sasha Banks did next year's WrestleMania. And John Cena, as Hugh Can't See Me, did the WrestleMania in 2 years. And it was about 5 minutes long. So that's one way. Then there's the way that I found out. And this kind of ties into the Hard to Kill show. Because originally, I was going to watch the show. I was going to watch Hard to Kill live and, just watch it. And then I was like, I'm going to get the show. It'll be up on Fight TV. I could watch it tomorrow. I'm going to go watch football with my dad, which we did. During the pregame show of the Buffalo Bills-Baltimore Ravens game, Triple H appeared. Not in a wig, not in glasses, not in a costume, but as Triple H. And he talked about the Bills Mafia real quick, and then sent us to a video package. And then it's just, boom, WrestleMania, April 10th and 11th, 2021. Boom, WrestleMania, April 3rd, 2022. Boom, WrestleMania, April 2nd, 2023. And it's like, holy crap, they just gave the next 3 WrestleManias on football, on pregame football, on NBC. And I was like, I couldn't believe it, number one, that they did that. And then number two, it's like, did anybody catch it? Eventually people did catch it. They were putting pictures up on social media, and the news outlets were reporting it, and I tweeted it out on our Twitter account at Wrestling Show 11. So, this is what we have. April 10th and 11th this year will be 2 nights again. Will be in Tampa, Florida at Raymond James Stadium. Now, unless I am wrong about what I'm about to say, and I'm gonna bet some money, if I'm just gonna, you know what, I'm just gonna say it. I don't think this has ever happened, what I'm about to say. Tampa Bay will become the first city to host both a Super Bowl and a WrestleMania in the same year. I don't believe any other city has ever done that before. So Tampa's going to make history by having the Super Bowl, which is in 3 weeks, and then having WrestleMania in 2.5 months. So Tampa's going to make history by having both the Super Bowl and WrestleMania in the same city, in the same stadium. It's never been done before, to my knowledge, in the same year. So that's a big deal. WrestleMania 38, which will be April the 3rd, 2022, will be held in Dallas, Texas at AT&T Stadium. So you could expect WWE will be talking about how they set a brand new attendance record there again. And WrestleMania 39, which will be April the 2nd, 2023, will be in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, which was originally going to host this year's WrestleMania. But at least they're going to host a WrestleMania. It's just going to be a couple of years later. I will be very interested to see if, like, they had done any... I don't think they had done any package plans prior to this announcement, but, you know, we're in uncertain times, and this is unprecedented news that that 3 WrestleManias are announced. Because usually, you know, depending on the time of the year, WrestleMania doesn't get announced in the early days until like a few months. And then, you know, in more modern times, it's been like within a year, like, oh, this is where the next WrestleMania is going to be. So here they have announced 3 WrestleManias in a row, which has never been done, and I don't think will ever be done again. So that's the big news of the week right there, is we're going to get 3 WrestleManias, and WWE said that they're going to attempt to have fans in Raymond James Stadium, or at least Stephanie McMahon said they're going to attempt to have fans in Raymond James Stadium for both nights of WrestleMania, which does give me concern. And I want to talk about that because let's say, because we don't know what the ticket situation is going to be yet. It can't be full capacity. So it'll probably be 25,000. That's a guess. Are you going to do a deal where you have a 2-night package, where it's like you could go to both nights of WrestleMania? Or do you do one night, but you have to pick the night? Like, do you go with night 1? Do you go with night 2? And then there's still the possibility of getting COVID. You know, I mean, folks, let's be honest. We're not out of the woods yet. Not by a long shot. I mean, there are some countries in this world that are much more fortunate than us to not having to deal with COVID anymore. We are still in it. We're about to have our second wave. And, you know, we're in this situation where, do you really want to have fans at this WrestleMania? Personally, for me, I would not do it. But then again, I'm not Vince McMahon. I have a soul. So, but WrestleMania 37, 38, 39, the dates are confirmed. The locations have been confirmed. I'll go through them one more time. April 10th and 11th, second year in a row, WrestleMania will do 2 nights. Will be in Tampa, Florida, Raymond James Stadium. April the 3rd, 2022, Dallas, Texas, AT&T Stadium. And April the 2nd, 2023, Los Angeles, California, SoFi Stadium will be the place for those 3 WrestleManias. So, I don't know if anyone's heard, but we have a new president of the United States. Jack Tunney unfortunately lost his election. But no, Joe Biden was sworn in this week, and one of the things that he has done is he has created a travel policy where if you go out of the country to another country and you come back, or if you're entering our country, if you're entering the United States, you have to wait 2 weeks. You have to be quarantined for 2 weeks before you can come and do anything. And this is a big deal because you have wrestlers that are traveling from different places around the world. You know, you have some going to Mexico, you have some going to Japan, you have some going to Europe, and when they come back, they're going to have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. And that's going to affect a lot of people. And, you know, with I'll use AEW as a starter. They have international talent. Riho, we have not seen in almost a year. You have Pac, who comes from England, you know, every so often. The Lucha Brothers, Kenny Omega, you know, they were down in Mexico last month before this policy came into effect. We would not have seen either one of those 3 on TV had they done, you know, Triple Mania back in December and then come right back. They would have had to have been quarantined for 2 weeks. And then, you know, you also have some of the Canadian wrestlers. You have, you know, some of the talent there. And it's not only AEW, it's WWE, New Japan. You know, New Japan, we've seen it where they don't have the full talent roster there with them, but they're able to still do good shows and have good matches. Ring of Honor, we've seen, they have done an amazing job during the quarantine, you know, during the pandemic, during the quarantine, of being able to keep everybody, for the most part, safe and not have anybody get exposed to COVID. So, you know, it's a very interesting time right now, and with Biden being sworn in and making one of these executive orders right away, it's going to be very interesting to see how the wrestling industry as a whole is going to be able to do stuff, to book stuff, especially with foreign talent, and how, you know, you can't use them for 2 weeks. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes down. One other thing I do want to talk about, then I want to talk about Raw. There is a rumor going around, and again, that's the key word, is rumor. I always like to stress that word because, you know, social media, internet these days, you don't really know if these stories are true or not, depending on the site. There is a rumor going around right now that the WWE will do a virtual Hall of Fame ceremony this year to induct the class of 2020, the class that never got their opportunity to get inducted. To remind everybody again, that class, it's Batista, JBL, the Bella Twins, the NWO, Davey Boy Smith, and Jushin Thunder Liger are the class of 2020. So will we get, will we get the induction? Will we get a virtual induction ceremony? That's the question right now. And if they do a virtual ceremony, I don't think I'd have a problem with it. I really don't think I'd have a problem. How they pull it off, well, we'll get to that another time and another day. So, okay, I want to talk about Raw this week, because I could not make it through. I really couldn't make it through Raw this week. I hate to say that, but it's true. I could not deal with that crap. So, after they do the Martin Luther King annual tribute video, we see the Thunderdome, the quote-unquote crowd is there, and then we see Randy Orton. And Randy Orton is wearing a mask. And my God, this just drags on. This was so bad. Oh my God. I think someone said it was like a 10-minute promo. And it was like, Orton's like, I showed compassion to Alexa Bliss. I'll never do that again. And it just goes on and on and on and on. It's almost like you're watching this movie and you're trying to get to the point of the movie and there's just no point. And it's just terrible. Oh my God. I'll say this. This might be the worst feud Randy Orton has ever been in. And parts of it are not his fault. They really aren't. He's just been given a crappy storyline. And the storyline is he faced The Fiend in an Inferno match. He beat him, then burned him alive. And now Alexa Bliss is doing the quote-unquote dirty work of The Fiend, pours herself with gasoline all over her, could have been burned, Randy didn't do it, and then Randy gets burned, and now he's looking like the Destroyer Dick Buyer. And it's just ridiculous. It just is. Why do I have a feeling this is going to go all the way to WrestleMania? I have that feeling this is going to go all the way to WrestleMania. Just do. Then, we have a backstage segment with Lacey Evans and Ric Flair. Why Ric Flair is on TV, I have no idea. The man is in his 70s. He shouldn't be out there. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. I really don't. And then Charlotte has a match with Peyton Royce. And I feel bad for Peyton Royce. I really do. She is the side piece. She and Asuka are the side piece to a story of Charlotte Flair, Lacey Evans, and Ric Flair. Just let that sink into your head for a moment. Peyton Royce, who's a good wrestler. Asuka, the Raw Women's Champion and one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions. I almost said Knockouts Tag Champs. I probably because I'm thinking of the pay-per-view coming up here, the review. And they're nothing in this story. It's Charlotte, Lacey, and Rick. And then we see Lacey walk out in one of Ric Flair's robes. And Charlotte, at the end, puts the figure 8 on Peyton, and she wins, but she won't let it go. And that's where I was like, I need a miracle to come. And thankfully, the miracle came in the form of Joe Murata doing a live YouTube stream just to hang around, talk the talk, have fun. So I had Raw on mute while hanging out with the guys, Joe Murata and, some of the friends of the show. And it's just like, oh, thank you. You have no idea how much you saved my life on Monday night. And then you have... And then you have Alexa Bliss. She does, the Alexa Bliss playground. Asuka comes on, and that just gets weird. And then you have the main event match. And it's just, what the hell is going on? I don't know what is happening because the Alexa Bliss character, I don't think can be saved at this point. I don't think this character can be saved. She was fine the way she was until the whole thing with Bray Wyatt, with The Fiend. And now she's like, the perfect comparison is Joker and Harley Quinn, which is a pretty good comparison there. The Alexa Bliss character is ruined. It is ruined. And then the other thing is, how long does this character go? I mean, the Fiend character has been going on for a year and a half. How long does Alexa Bliss being a Fiend-like character go on? I can't see it going a year and a half. There's no way. I just can't see it. So, yeah, I mean, at least Drew McIntyre's coming back. He's going to be on Raw Monday night, and he and Goldberg are going to get themselves ready for the Royal Rumble and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about WWE right now. It's just blah, 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 blah. I mean, we're getting ready for the road to WrestleMania, and this might be the first time in a long time that I am kind of dreading where this road to WrestleMania is going to go. I'm kind of in that position of this may not end good. This just may not end good. So, but I will tell you what was good was Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view from this past Saturday night. Like I said earlier in the show, I did not watch it live as it happened. I just was not in the mood to watch it live. Nothing against Impact. Nothing against Impact. I just didn't have the desire to do it. So I watched it the following day. And there's only one match that I don't have on here, and I'm going to mention it right away. Josh Alexander against Brian Myers. That was the pre-show match. Brian Myers got the victory. Meltzer gave that 2 3/4 stars. I did not see this match, so I'm going to not give that match a grade whatsoever because, well, I didn't see it. Okay, so now we're going to go into the pay-per-view, and we start off with a mixed tag team match as the Decay of Crazy Steve and Rosemary fought Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K. Oh, and by the way, I do want to mention this. New commentary team. Almost said Al Snow. Matt Stryker and D'Lo Brown were the commentators for this show, and I'll give you my thoughts on their commentating after I am done with this review. So this is a mixed tag match. Nothing really to write home about. Crazy Steve and Rosemary, they each spray the mist on Caleb and Tenille, and Crazy Steve and Rosemary get the win. I gave this a C- grade. Meltzer gave it a 1.5 stars. Then we go to a 6-man tag team match fought under old school rules. Basically, it's an anything goes match. The team of Eric Young, Joe Doring, and Cody Deaner, known as Violence by Design. I actually like that name. Fought the team of Tommy Dreamer, Rhino, and Cousin Jake. This was, you know what? It was an okay little fight. There really wasn't much to write home about. It was your typical 6-man brawl. Joe Doring, I'll say this. Joe Doring looked really good. For someone who probably not a lot of American fans know, unless you watched him in All Japan, which I did not, but do know of his work. He looks like a hoss. This guy could be championship material in Impact Wrestling. I'm not saying he's going to win the world title this year, but if he stays with Impact for maybe another 1.5 years, 2 years, then yeah, maybe Joe Doring becomes Impact World Champion. So Young, Deaner, and Doring win the old school rules match. I didn't think it was that bad. It was a little fun at times. I gave it a C+. Meltzer gave it a 1.5 stars. Then we had the finals of the Knockouts Tag Team Title Tournament to crown new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. It was Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, now known as Fire and Flava, against Havoc and Nevaeh. Brian Hebner was the referee for this match. It was noticeable because he recently left the NWA, or basically his contract ran up with the NWA, did not re-sign, and went to Impact for this show. Again, this was an okay match. Nothing really to complain about here. It's just they weren't really given a lot of time, and they were trying to push Havoc here as the strong, big woman, because Kiera Hogan is so small. But they did a manageable job. They did a good job here. Steelz and Hogan win the Knockouts Tag Team titles. They are the new champs. I gave it a C+. Meltzer gave it 1.25 stars. Now, I do want to mention that in the early part of this event, there's a very good segment with Moose, Rich Swann, and Chris Sabin. And I'm going to say it right now. This was the Moose show. This pay-per-view was the Moose show. Because the segment, Rich Swann, he and, Sabin, they're in the room. Moose comes in, and Rich is upset because Moose is the partner, and he doesn't want him to be the partner. And Moose just cuts this great promo, and he's like, look, I played in the NFL. There were guys on my team that I didn't like, and there were guys on that team, or on my team, that I absolutely hated. But when it came to game time, I set all my differences aside, and I worked to win for the team. I'm going to work for the team tonight. I am not going to stab you in the back. I am not going to attack you. I am going to be there as your partner for this match tonight. And, after that promo, it's like, okay. I mean, I've been a Moose fan for a long time. And I thought this was his best promo. Wait till we get to later in the show, where he has an even better one. So, Ace Austin comes out with Madman Fulton. And it was kind of surprising. Ace Austin did not have a match on the pay-per-view. He won the Super X Cup the previous week. And he says that he should be in the triple threat match for the X Division title. They should make it a 4-way match. So, Scott D'Amore put me in the match, make it a 4-way match. So, Scott D'Amore comes out. He says, okay, I'll give you a match, but it's not going to be for the X Division title. I have somebody in the back who's ready to go, ready for an opportunity to wrestle. And it is the debuting Matt Cardona, the former Zack Ryder. And it is a very short match, but Cardona looked good with Ace Austin in this match. Gave him a couple of broski boots, was going for the Rough Rider. Sorry, I couldn't think of the move there. But Madman Fulton got in. Disqualification. Matt Cardona got the win. Cardona cleaned house after. I gave the match a C. It actually was a good paced match. I thought it was going to go a little bit longer, but I guess time-wise they didn't have the time. So they just gave it 2.5 minutes. Meltzer did not rate this match, probably because it was only 2.5 minutes. Then we go to the X Division title match. Manik defending the title against Chris Bay and Rohit Raju. This was a very good title match. I would say this is the best title match of the pay-per-view. Of the three, this was the best of the three. Manik looked good. Chris Bay looked good. Raju looked good. It told a very good story here. But the problem with this match, and it's not the wrestler's fault, it's Matt Striker here. It is Matt Striker. He just says out front, Manik is TJP. And D'Lo Brown is like, no, he's not. That's Manik. You can't prove that's TJP. And we get to a point where Manik loses his mask. Rohit Raju takes the mask off. And when the mask is off, and we see Manik's face, it's TJP with makeup on. He kind of looks like a member of Cobra Kai from the first Karate Kid movie, except they didn't have the red lining on the lips. It just, so he has the makeup on. And D'Lo's like, oh my god, Manik has been unmasked. I don't know who that is. And, Matt's like, dude, this is TJP. And it's like, oh man. But we do get good back and forth action. Manik retains the X Division title in a very good match. Like I said, this was the best of the 3 title matches that we had on this pay-per-view. So I gave this a B. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. Next match is the Knockouts title. Deonna Purrazzo defending against Taya Valkyrie. So prior to the match, Rosemary asks Taya if she and Crazy Steve can be in her corner for the match. Which she's like, yeah, of course, So, the beginning of this match is a lot of interference. Kimberly gets involved, Rosemary gets involved, Susan, who's a brand new character, Sue Young, she, and it's kind of funny, I kind of like this part because Susan has her cell phone out, and Crazy Steve is confronting her, not touching her, not doing anything. And she's filming this. And as she's filming this, Crazy Steve accidentally elbows the referee. The referee was behind him. Steve accidentally elbows him. So the referee's like, okay, you're out. Go to the back. Then he kicks Kimberly out. Then he kicks Rosemary out. Then he kicks Susan out. They all go to the back. So it is just Purrazzo and Valkyrie. And while this was a good match, it kind of hurt that there was nobody on the outside. You could have done something maybe where you had, you could have had Kimberly maybe get involved, and, Rosemary comes to make a save and all that. They didn't go that way. You did have some good wrestling in this match. I will say that. You had good wrestling in this match. But Deonna Purrazzo wins with a Fujiwara armbar to retain the Knockouts title. I gave it a B-. Meltzer gave it 2.25 stars. Now, I want to stick with this because we had the conclusion to the long mystery of who shot Johnny Bravo. Our national nightmare is over, ladies and gentlemen. Because Ace Romero figured it out. It was Taya Valkyrie who shot John E. Bravo. And she was being dragged off. And Rosemary's like, why did you do it? And she was like, I just didn't want to lose you. So they give her, they give each other a hug before Taya gets dragged away. And then Ace, I didn't see this, but I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. So Ace asks Tommy, do you think she's going to be all right? And Tommy's like, well, if she goes to the Jacksonville prison, she might be all right. If she goes to the Stanford prison, she'll probably get 2 years there with an option for a third. I'm not so sure about the Baltimore prison. So right there, they're making jabs at AEW, WWE, and Ring of Honor. Alright, now we're going to get to what might be the controversy of this pay-per-view. Ethan Page versus the Karate Man. Why is there a controversy to this? Well, I'll get to it in a moment. So this is a taped match. It's goofy. Karate Man rips out Ethan Page's heart a la Mortal Kombat. Karate Man wins. Ethan Page is dead. That's how Ethan Page is written off. I gave it a C+. If they had gone a little bit longer, it might have actually gotten a better grade for me, but it didn't go long enough. So that's why I gave it a C+. Meltzer didn't grade it because he doesn't grade cinematic matches. Now, Ethan took to Twitter. Yeah, he took to Twitter. And he wrote the following, which I'm about to read to you guys. And he was not happy. Let's say that. He was not happy about how the production went. So I'm going to read this tweet. I'm going to take a full-blown break from social media. I'll be staying active on my personal Patreon as much as I can, and probably in this group too, because I love the fig life and you guys. XOXOX. But man, last night sucked. I'm so embarrassed with how Impact lazily edited that segment last night and forced it to be a joke. I felt the thought of the same guys fighting each other was comedy enough, and the more serious we took it, the better the reaction would be. But 'cause I left the company, they lied to my face and just did what they wanted the whole time. I'm sorry if any of my fans paid for that pay-per-view and felt cheated. I honestly feel the free version I gave away was made with more love, care, and attention to detail. Sadly, I had no control over the creative or the final product, and the editor refused to send it to me beforehand. So I saw it live with you guys and was surrounded by family, all scratching their heads at that high school project level delivery on a pay-per-view. I pray people know I didn't edit that hot garbage. I actually begged Impact not to even have Karate Man on TV. I only wanted it for my YouTube channel. But we don't write the shows. We just get the scripts and do our best. I don't know what else to say. Breaks my heart this company refuses to respect its talent or its fan base on a regularly basis. I tried. Oh well, life goes on. That door is closed. Now let's focus on what's next. Hope you're all well. I love you. I love all of you for supporting me and helping promote my projects. Because without you guys, Karate Man wouldn't have been anything. Haha. I'm gonna just focus on the good that came of him for my social media and my personal channels. He's gone now, and may he live on in good videos edited by the person who created him, not stolen by a greedy company trying to capitalize on someone else's hard work and creativity. Sorry if this comes off so negative. I know I'm usually a positive light for my fans, but today I need to just be honest. I was lied to. I was hurt. I was disrespected, and I need a break from it all. Yeah, I'll be honest. Oh, let me pause that. I was surprised at how quick that was, like that match, if you didn't see it, because it really was short. It probably wasn't even 5 minutes. Or maybe it was 5 minutes, but it didn't feel like it. So I could kind of see his point, where he's coming from. Then we go to the segment of the pay-per-view. This was the segment of the pay-per-view, hands down. So Moose, again, this is the Moose show. This pay-per-view is the Moose show. So Moose is in the back getting ready for the main event. He's met with Don Callis. Don Callis is talking with him, and he's like, "Hey, big man, really like your stuff. You know, I think you could go places. What are you signed here for? 2 more years? Oh, these 2 years are going to be fantastic. You know, if you just stick with me, you're going to become a big star." And then Moose just has this incredible, ending where he's like, "First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go beat Rich Swann and become Impact Champion. And I'm going to unify both belts." Because he still has the TNA Heavyweight title in his possession. Then, when I'm done with that, I'm going to go to AEW. I'm going to go follow your little boy. And I'm going to become AEW World Champion. And so he leaves, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be Moose's time. And I love Don Callis' reaction. He's just like, shit. So now, without Kenny Omega knowing, he has a big threat in Moose. So our next match is Barbed Wire Massacre between Sammy Callahan and Eddie Edwards. The setup is very different because there's a part of a cage that is up on one side. Weapons are hung. They're wrapped in barbed wire. There's barbed wire covered board, barbed wire covered table. And this is just a good old down and dirty fight. Both men bleeding. Both men just ripping each other apart, going all over the place. D'Lo Brown at one point loses audio on his headset because Matt Striker's trying to talk to D'Lo and you can't hear D'Lo. And then Striker's like, "Oh, well, we got D'Lo back. He's back on commentary." So, it's just a good old fight. Brawl between these two guys. It's I felt like this was supposed to be the final chapter of this rivalry. Eddie Edwards, hits the Boston Knee Party, and then hits the Emerald Flosion onto Sammy Callahan to get the win and maybe end the war between the two once and for all. I gave it a B+. Meltzer gave it 3 3/4 stars. Next Impact pay-per-view, you're going to want to mark the date down. Saturday night, April the 24th. It is... what is it? Retribution? I think it is... no, it's Rebellion. I'm sorry. You know what? I get so mixed up with these pay-per-view names. But yeah, it is Rebellion. That is the next pay-per-view that they will have. That'll be on April 24th, 2021. And then we go to the main event. Best match of the show. 6-man tag team match. Rich Swann, Moose, and Chris Sabin against Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. A fantastic 6-man tag team match. This was a great match. Told a great story. Sabin and Anderson start the match. They wrestle for a little bit. Moose and Gallows get at each other for a little bit. Looks really good. Swann and Omega get at it for a little bit. Looks really good. Then they work on Rich Swann. Omega is just going after him. Anderson and Gallows are doing the double team. They even do a triple team splash, which looked pretty interesting. And then Sabin comes in, and he's trying to get the advantage, but Omega and the Good Brothers, they keep control. And Moose comes in eventually, and it's just such a good match, good storytelling. And then in the end, it ends up being Swann and Omega being the legal men in the ring. Omega hits the one-winged angel on the Rich Swann, gets the 3 count. Omega, Gallows, and Anderson win the 6-man tag. The bigger story is Omega pinned the Impact Wrestling World Champion, which means Omega is probably going to get a title shot down the line. I gave this match an A-. I would go out of, if you haven't seen it, I'd go out of your way to go see this match. A good 6-man tag, which told a good story. Meltzer gave this 4 1/4 stars. As far as the pay-per-view itself, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good pay-per-view. I thought the last 2 matches were the best matches of the pay-per-view. I really did. What it was you had you had to go through some of the not good stuff in the beginning, but then eventually it started to get better. And the X Division title was a really good match. The barbed wire match was really good. The 6-man main event was a really good match. So if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a B. That would be the grade I'd give this pay-per-view. It was just a good pay-per-view overall as far as the action goes. As far as the commentary goes with Matt Stryker and D'Lo Brown. Can you imagine Matt Hardy and D'Lo Brown commentary? That'd probably be pretty fun. You know what? It was their first night together. There were moments where the chemistry was there, but there were other moments where one would go off the tracks, the other would try to bring him back, and then vice versa. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for the two of them to gel together as a commentating team. Will they end up being a good team? I don't know. I'd like to think they will, because Matt Stryker has the knowledge of the pro wrestling business, and D'Lo Brown, who's been a wrestler, knows the ins and outs, is going to be a good color man. So I'm hoping it ends up being good, but it's kind of a wait and see how everything turns out. But like I said a few times, this really was the Moose show. This was Moose's pay-per-view, and I really think he delivered big time on this pay-per-view. Alright, well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. But before we go, do the plugs. If you have any questions or comments, send an email, wrestlingman@thatwrestlingshow.com. You do that, I'll read your question or comment right here on the podcast. Don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at WrestlingShow11. Follow us on Instagram at That Wrestling Show. Join the Facebook group. It is That Wrestling Show fan group. You type that in the search bar and boom, you are right there. If you can't find it, it's okay. I put the link in the description of each and every episode. And if you like what you heard here, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/That Wrestling Show. And I heard a little rumor that there's going to be a brand new That Wrestling Show After Dark coming up real soon. And you can get that for only $1 a month. Not a bad deal, I think. Time to plug friends of our podcast. Check out our Vantage Point, the retro wrestling podcast with my savior for this week anyway, Joe Murata and Michael Quinn. This week, they discuss what went wrong with Dan Severn's WWF run. Very interesting question there. Plus, week 4 of the Royal Flush of the Worst Feuds and a review of WWF Heavyweight Wrestling from May 9th, 1965. That is this week on our Vantage Point. Also, check out Greetings from Allentown as Peter Winston watches one episode of professional wrestling each week. This week, he reviews an episode of WWF Championship Wrestling from December 2nd, 1978. On this episode, Tony Garea and Larry Zbyszko win the tag team titles. That is this week on Greetings from Allentown. Check out Juice Pro Wrestling, where this week they interview YouTuber Nicotine as they discuss content creation, video games, wrestling, collectibles, how he got started on YouTube, and so much more. That is this week on Juice Pro Wrestling. And check out Two Fans Review Wrestling Podcast as they go through the entire Monday Night Wars. This week, they discuss the Go Home Raw show before the December In Your House event, plus Raw, well actually I did mention Raw, plus Nitro ECW Superstar Saturday night, and a lot more. That is this week on Two Fans Review Wrestling Podcast. Now, if you're looking for non-wrestling related podcasts, check out Last Stop Penn Station with Kerry Silken and Ian Riccaboni as we go into the life of Kerry Silken. This week, he talks about the Nice Man. Want to check that out? Some interesting stories there. Also, check out the Castle Vault, a chronological deep dive of Disney animated films powered by Disney+. This week, they begin Season 2 of the Castle Vault as they will watch Pixar movies, and there's only one way to start it, with the 1995 masterpiece, Toy Story. That is this week on the Castle Vault. Check out Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, where this week they interview comedian Zach Sherwin, who's best known for writing for and performing in the Epic Rap Battles of History on YouTube, plus writing for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and creating the Crossword Show, plus a lot more this week on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And don't forget to check out Shark's Pond, a South Park podcast where I review and discuss each and every South Park episode. This week, I discuss the Season 11 episode, Licecapades. That is this week on Shark's Pond, a South Park podcast. All right, next week, it is a biggie. It is a big show, ladies and gentlemen, because it is the Royal Rumble preview show. I will be previewing the Royal Rumble. We'll go through all the matches that are going to take place. Plus, I'm going to give you my predictions as to who's going to win the men's and women's Royal Rumble match. And an annual tradition that I like to do, give you guys stats that the WWE might not want you to remember, but I'm going to give them to you anyway next week. So on that note, everybody have a good, safe weekend. Have fun. And come back next week for our Royal Rumble preview show right here on That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And as always, why is Bernie Sanders sitting next to me? I mean, the inauguration was 2 days ago. Why is he sitting next to me? Somebody want to remove him? He's kind of creeping me out.